Hello, I'm Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Well, it's been nearly 7 years since retail beef prices and cattle prices disconnected from each other. And it's been 5 years since retail beef prices and cattle prices began moving in opposite directions, with consumers paying inflated prices for beef and America's cattle farmers and ranchers receiving depressed prices for their cattle. And within the same time frame, American consumers went to their grocery store to buy beef for their families, only to find the cupboards bare. They could not buy the protein they wanted because none was available. So how did it get this bad? Well, that's an important question because we can't expect to fix this mess unless we know how it occurred. So let's start at the beginning. A little over a generation ago, in the early 80s, a paradigm shift unfolded in America's food production system. And since that time, the negative changes that impacted our food production system were neglected, ignored, and even denied by Congress and the executive branch. And this ongoing neglect, inattention, and denial has been going on for decades. And it all started with our U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA. It began downplaying the importance of maintaining a strong family farm system of agriculture. And there hasn't been an agricultural secretary for decades who has fulfilled his or her statutory duty to strengthen our family farm system of agriculture by developing solutions to problems faced by small and moderate-sized family farming operations. In fact, the USDA knowingly began creating insurmountable problems for family farmers and ranchers by engaging in what we call the Great Consumer Welfare Experiment, which was an abject failure. In that failed experiment, the USDA began adopting policies that were known to cause considerable financial and economic harm to America's family farmers and ranchers. And it did this when its theoretical economic modeling showed that a short-term welfare benefit for consumers would outweigh the harms to farmers and ranchers. For example, the USDA systematically weakened U.S. import standards that once protected the U.S. from foreign animal diseases. And they did this because they believed that doing so would cheapen the cost of beef for consumers more than it would harm farmers and ranchers, even when the harm was considerable. But the USDA didn't stop there. It then began downplaying the importance of preserving competition itself in the cattle and beef supply chains by replacing the goal of competition with its new idol, that of achieving theoretical efficiencies through largeness of scale. In doing this, the USDA ignored completely the externality costs for their newfound gem. And chief among those externality costs was the hollowing out of rural America, achieved by depriving rural communities of their economic foundations historically provided by the family farm and ranch system of agriculture. Now, once the USDA triggered these three monumental shifts, which are now memorialized in the USDA's and the industry's false economic assumptions, large industrial agribusinesses stepped in to exploit the newly emerging paradigm. They took steps to increase their political influence, and one way they did this was to infiltrate the commodity trade associations that had historically represented farmers and ranchers. So very quickly, the multinational meat packers became seated on the governing boards of associations like the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the National Pork Producers Council, and the National Chicken Council. And while this was occurring, these industrial agribusinesses began reconstituting the policy, legal, and regulatory framework within which our food supply chain operates, including the entire cattle and beef supply chains. And they accomplished this by essentially deleting or nullifying the policies, laws, and regulations that had once made up the framework supporting our family farm and ranch system of agriculture. And this explains the decades-long lack of antitrust enforcement, lack of the Packers and Stockyards Act enforcement, deletion of once stringent food safety and import standards, elimination of cattle and beef tariffs, and forcing producers to pay checkoff taxes to further the self-interest of industrial agribusinesses. And then the USDA and the multinational meat packers formed a partnership that paved the way for unprecedented concentration, consolidation, and centralization of our food supply chains. Together, they purged competitive forces from the supply chain and replaced them with corporate command and control. They dismantled our supply chain's competitive marketing infrastructure, and this created unparalleled market leverage for the largest agribusinesses. And then came the globalization of the meat packers' input supply chains, that enabled them to access lower cost and undifferentiated raw materials from foreign countries. This magnified the negative effects of concentration, enabling them to suppress the entire live cattle supply chain. And this has effectively stunted the domestic supply chain's opportunity to expand or to otherwise counter the adverse effects of concentration. That includes now the creation of oversupplies and industry contraction. So there's our history. Our challenge is to reverse it. So let's get started. Please go to www.labelOurBeef.com, all one word, labelOurBeef.com, to learn how you can help. Have a productive week. Thank you and goodbye.